So what are the biggest challenges for first-time buyers, and what can buyers do to increase their chances of their offer being accepted?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for first-time buyers is just lack of understanding in the process. They come into it with more fear than anybody else because they don't own a property, they're getting into a property, they're literally committing probably all of their savings. So they're putting on a lot of essential risk, and that's intimidating. It's a lot to consider. You tend to overthink a lot of things. You tend to weigh the pros and cons more than you ever would for anything else. Totally understandable, but I think the best way to get into it with first-time buyers is to kind of come in open-minded, but like have a lot of questions. Like ask your real estate professionals, ask your lenders, get all the information that you need to build that confidence. And, take a general interest on like how the market moves. Your realtor is going to know exactly how the market's moving, like where you're at, because they'll do a full assessment on every property that you're interested in, just to make sure that like, hey, this neighborhood over here in Logan, appreciation values are like 6% right now, which is 2% higher than this neighborhood and like 6% higher than this other neighborhood no one wants to live in. So at least when you buy a place, you can see the value that's going to grow, and know that you're making a good investment. That helps you feel a little bit better going into it. And then answering all of those questions, like that's literally our job. My job is not to sell you a house, make sure
to open
doors, to like walk you through. My job is to make sure that you are comfortable, you're confident, and you are ready to move forward with your decision. It's your decision. It's not mine. I am here to help facilitate a lot of things. I'm here to represent your best interests. I'm here to represent you when you aren't able to be there. Let's say you got an inspection coming up and it's the middle of the day. I'm there. You're able to still work and then rest easy because I am coming in to give that special assessment over the whole process of like what's going on. Like I live in this daily. I grew up doing work inside houses, like, and outside of houses, and like I understand the parts that are all scary. And knowing that you have to like replace an AC unit or do all this other stuff, if you know about it before you buy the house, more often than not, you can get a deal on it and you can negotiate on those things. And like you can make the deal a lot more comfortable for yourself and like make sure everybody feels like they're winning in the deal. So,
and don't use an online lender.
Yeah, I've had that from different online lead sources back in the pandemic era where literally people are like, oh, I could sell a house whenever and do whatever. It's still not that hard. Like I've had online lenders trying to lend from California here in Chicago, and they don't know anything about like the process or the laws or the fact that we have to have an attorney oversee like every single part of this stuff. And I've had them crap out entire deals and then have to bring in a lender and say, hey, we got 6 days that we need until clear to close. Can you get this done? And they'll be like, all right, give me your guy and we'll put through the info and magically piece it together. Like it's not the most ideal way to do it, but if you can keep it on track and not scare those sellers where they're like, oh crap, we picked the wrong offer. That's some of the stuff that we do as realtors. Like we keep the fabric together. We're not letting things unravel, keeping communication going. I've had other ones with, local lenders around here that just haven't been that great, and I won't name them because that's not good business. But, when people go on vacation, email chains break, and it just sucked that one deal where the guy went on vacation and then that fill-in went on vacation and then their fill-in had the weekend off. And you are like, what the hell's going on here? Why can't we figure out clear to close? Your clients want to buy this house, and I have a piece of information that we already needed. And because I got X'd out of the communication chain, could have resolved something 5 days ago that literally could have saved the deal, saved everybody a lot of time, and then didn't scare the shit out of my sellers. But, that's all parts of the job. So, I mean, we just make sure that we can take care of everybody.
Well, I think, Chicago's a big condo market, and obviously there are big condo markets all over the country, but, the requirements on underwriting condos has changed quite a bit just in the last couple of years, and there's been some recent announcements too. And I would say for a lot of like self-managed condo associations, it's not going to be an issue. It's these bigger ones that utilize management companies and how to handle those management companies and get the information that's required, that a lot of lenders that aren't familiar with the Chicago market, that's really where they shit the bed probably the most, I find. And then also just in general fees and transfer taxes and things like that. But
yeah, that and, specific loan products like the VA and FHA, like they're more strict on the requirements of HOAs than, regular conventional loan.
yeah.
So there's a lot of information that you got to make sure is happening there, like 10% commitment to
Reserves.
and all of those things alike, and making sure that they are charging the right amount, they're profiting like the right amount for the HOA to remain healthy, and that the building can be taken care of. Like those things are very important because, nobody wants to buy a house and then have a $5,000 special assessment right after they close. Because
or $5 million. I've seen those.
Well, yeah, but that's a lot of people paying for that part. I bought into a 6-unit and we needed to fix the roof as soon as I moved in. I knew that because I rented my unit before I bought it. Mm-hmm. And I tried to get that stuff repaired and fixed before I bought it, being smart. But didn't work out that way. I still had to kick in an extra $3,000 after closing, which wasn't the end of the world. It was a very small amount, but some people have $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 special assessments for these giant buildings, and you can't pay that all at once. You can't be expected to just forego all of that stuff. And then some people have to sell their place, and then that comes out of the proceeds. So it's like whatever value you had in that place could be eaten by a special assessment. Mm-hmm. So you got to understand the benefits and the cost benefit analysis of where you're going to be moving, where you're living, and make sure things are just run properly.
Yeah, and I'm noticing a lot of the high rises there's a lot of ongoing work. I mean, obviously these buildings are, for the most part, not all brand new, and so there's regular maintenance and upkeep and things that they have to do. But it just seems like it's been a lot more in recent years. Maybe it's specifically because now we have to really document that stuff and look at it. And I don't know if I copied you on that email about the new condo guidelines. Are you aware
I don't think I've gotten that one yet.
Oh, shit. Do I not have you on my chain? I'll make sure you're on there. So now what Fannie and Freddie want, and this just went into effect as of the 18th. So now what they want is if a building has not had an inspection in the last 3 years, then they're going to need to start going through meeting minutes, which we've had to pull meeting minutes before because a lot of these management companies won't answer questions about deferred maintenance and safety and habitability. But they can request up to 2 years. And some of those meeting minutes are hundreds of pages long. And that's all stuff that we now have to go through as well. A lot of these buildings probably didn't have an inspection in the last 3 years. And then if it did, and we have to provide the inspection report, what are they going to go through and nitpick? It's all in the name of safety, which is, I completely understand. But, again, these buildings generally have ongoing maintenance. And then is this deferred maintenance? Is this serious? Is it a safety issue? I've had to argue with underwriters about elevator modernization. Building's got 3 elevators. They're going to shut one down at one time to modernize it. Doesn't mean everybody's taking the stairs. It doesn't mean they're going to ride the elevator that's being fixed and potentially fall to the floor. So, yeah, it's going to be a little tougher with condos for sure.
Well, yeah, and elevators are definitely something important. I was just on probably the oldest feeling elevator on a rental tour a couple weeks ago.
Is the one where you had to shut the... Yeah.
And it said, do not open the door at any cost until the elevator comes to a full stop. That was just the front window. Like there was no window. It was a warning. Ride at your own risk. And, it goes slower than shit anyways for one floor.
We, long time ago, when I was in this band, we had a rehearsal space on North and Rockwell, and it had a freight elevator in the back that was like that, and then a front elevator in the building that was like that. And in the freight elevator, you had to hold the button and let go when you got to your floor. And we were loading in one night at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and the maintenance guy, Lee, saw us pulling around, so he brought the elevator down for us, and we get in there. We start going up, and it goes past the floor, and he's like, oh, this ain't good, man. I got stuck in this elevator till like 4 in the morning the other night.
That sounds very Wayne's World 2.
Oh, that place was also a shithole. So, well, we kind of just answered the next question, which was what should buyers look at when it comes to HOA. Here's a good one. What's the most memorable or interesting or weird deal that you have done? Got any good stories?
Well, I mean, we've already closed. Thing I'm dealing with now is it was a 2022 rehab, full gut rehab, and my client loved the home, didn't find anything else that she really liked, paid really good money for it. We got a deal because, the seller overvalued the market, and I was able to get them to come to their senses. But a lot of things in the negotiations they were trying to get out of was builder warranties and like guarantees that when she moves in, things like shit's not going to break. There's no shoddy work whatsoever in here and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't get that guarantee and like a builder's warranty for usually it's about 12 months, you can live in the place for a full year. If anything goes awry, like there's water leaking from the roof or whatever, which we did have, it's covered. They negotiated it down to 6 months, but we at least got a full 6 months on it, and everything covered. There's little bits that are happening in that house that they are responsible for, and it's a hard time right now. Getting a hold of the builder, getting them out to fix things, trying to make things happen before this deadline, and now I may be, this client's a friend of mine. Like I personally know this person. I catered with her when I was a chef. And you can't help but feel terrible about stuff like that. And knowing for everything that we went through, the inspection was super squeaky clean. Things looked really good. All the stuff's brand new. Like the actual on paper things of this house were like perfect. But then you get these little things, and those little things, as long as you know what you're doing and you can get those guarantees, it will be taken care of. Whether that builder does it or doesn't, she can get those things fixed. We can make sure everything happens. We can send them a bill. And if they don't want to pay that bill, we still have a real estate attorney and we can handle it other ways. But no, I mean, there's going to be different nuances to every deal. I haven't had anything terribly crazy go on. I'd say one of the best things that ever happened was saving a lot of value for some sellers. This was back in 2021, and they were trying to get some really good value for their home. It's in Bucktown. It's a single family house.
Okay.
Really good values down there.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any staging in the home whatsoever. It was just empty. And every single open house we did, every time we got an offer came in, it was like $250,000 under what we were trying to get for the home. And I just told them, was like, if we stage this, we fill it, we make it more, nice looking for the people that are coming in, we're going to get something that's just not investors trying to buy, gut, and flip this place.
Right.
Where, they were on the teetering point. They did a lot of renovations in the home. They had updated the place, probably $50,000, $60,000 worth of updates. in the span of like the last 10 years. So, I mean, there's new things, there's old things, there's really nice features in the home. Like it's a really good single family starter home down in Bucktown, but we just weren't getting anything out of it. And we ended up being on the market for like 6 months. And that's a navigation thing that you have to talk to people about. Everyone will let you know, like, have you ever heard of stair stepping the price? Like, and they're like, what does that mean? It's like, well, you're only comfortably lowering your asking price to the point where the market actually wants to pay this price for your home. And you're up, and then you're coming down $5,000 at a time. Like, if you do this for so slow, so long, you're on the market for like 6 months, and then now everybody's just wondering, what the hell's wrong with this house? How come it hasn't sold yet? And
that's when people start thinking, I can get that low ball offer. Exactly.
And then, you know what? That's where the $600,000 offer came out. And we were, at like $850. And I was like, we'll come down a little bit more and we'll get closer to that market. And then if we do this staging, like we'll get into like that market. People will not be literally looking at like every window seam and all this sort of stuff if you have furniture here. And we were able to save it. We pieced together a good deal, and we got actual like real neighborhood value for it. I mean, the brand new places right next door to that place that sold were like 1.2, 1.3 million.
Shit.
And this one was renovated 10 years before that. So, I mean, it's not the newest renovation, but it's still new, and it wasn't, a bad place. I had a realtor come in and tell me, it's like, oh, this was practically a tear down. I was like, I don't know what kind of houses you walk through, but in my book, this thing has never been anywhere near a teardown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just basically learn how to adapt and be adaptful for your clients and give them the better understanding of like how to make this thing actually work to where they're going to be comfortable and happy.
Set the expectations with them.
Yeah. Or redirect the expectations to reality.
Sure.
In that sort of sense. So, other than that, I haven't had anything particularly crazy. I'd say
celebrity deals.
No, nothing celebrity.
I'd
say the thing that sucks the most is constantly navigating rental deals. Not to knock anybody that can actually do it. I was very successful at it at the beginning of my career. But I mean, there's so much that goes into that, and literally everybody that has a rental out there is not trying to pay you. So like the whole time you're just like fighting for your commission, and doing a lot of work. I literally just had that happen. My last 5 rental deals I have not been paid for. So it's not that I don't care about my clients, but I got them a place, some of them I've driven an hour and 20 minutes one way in traffic to go look at places, and they ended up signing it on to a place that I didn't show them, and I'm like, all right.
I've heard these stories.
It's I think the war stories my wife's and trials and
too. It's everything you're saying. I've heard it all. I hear it. Yeah. We already the last question was, will there be a real estate crash, which we kind of touched on, but if you want to elaborate on it, we can.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not in the residential market, for sure. I mean, there's just no inventory.
The commercial space is quite a different animal.
Yeah, the values continue to trend upward.
Yeah.
Pricing, depending on your neighborhood, is very solid.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a very good foundation of where it's going. Lending practices are not shady anymore. Everybody is definitely verified that they can actually sufficiently pay for these loans, otherwise they won't be approved.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd say the only thing that really is kind of shady in the market right now is the fact that I've heard from attorneys and other people facilitating deals that some agents will come in and offer giant like down payments and say, my clients are coming in at
and then they'll close
50%. Yeah. And then they adjust all of the numbers after they get under contract. And it's like, you know what? You literally did that to oust the other 5 deals that you're competing with.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. You're advocating for your clients, but you know what? You're also deceiving the sellers. And that doesn't look like a good deal in my mind. I feel like everybody has a fair chance to do it. If you can make it work, you can make it work. But just by leading on that foot, it doesn't make me feel comfortable knowing that somebody's trying to just pull the wool over our eyes, you know?
Well, I think that's where a lender can come in, because I mean, I have clients all the time that they've got assets, right? Whether they're liquid or non-liquid, they have assets. And maybe they're only doing 5 or 10% down because they don't necessarily want to liquidate those assets. So when that offer goes in that says 5 or 10% down, and I call that listing agent to just give them a quick rundown, obviously with nothing I'm not supposed to tell them, privately for my client, but just letting them know, like, listen, we're doing this down payment because we don't want to have to liquidate more. They've got additional assets. They're in very good shape. But this is the only reason we're going with this.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes having that context and that conversation can be really, really helpful when that offer goes in and it's 5 or 10% down, you're competing against 20% down. I mean, I think at the end of the day, probably 9 times out of 10, we're looking for the offer that's highest and best.
Well, that's what they always call for in the multiples. So I need your highest and best by Tuesday, 8 p.m.
And then there's the guy that waits until Tuesday at 6 p.m. to get his pre-approval done.
Yeah. I was actually just out to lunch with an attorney partner of mine, and she was having a day. One of her deals that was under contract, dude's on paper, perfect. Mm-hmm. Highest credit you could ever have. He's got $2 million cash in the bank. Could easily have just bought the place cash. And he was going to put $50K down, and they sent him the wiring instructions, and then he went MIA. Like, just couldn't find the guy. The whole deal just completely unraveled, fell apart, and now, like, that agent doesn't look very good to the selling agent. The lender doesn't look good, and then the attorneys don't look good on keeping everything together, and it's just like, all the dude had to do was pick up the phone and complete the wire.
Maybe he disappeared because he had $2 million in his bank account.
I mean, if I had $2 million just in a bank account that was just ready for buying a house, God, I would just, there's so much I would do.
Buy a house, buy a couple investment properties, invest the rest.
Yes.
Or buy an island. If you can even get an island for $2 million these days.
It depends on where, but yeah. I'm sure there's a new one out there floating around.
On a volcano, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff, man. This is all a shit ton of good material. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we got a pretty good basis covered there.